Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Yata sarvani bhutani pratibandhi stitani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. Who wants to chant this evening? Do you have a copy of the text? They're around the corner. Do you see them on the far right, about fourth shelf down? I'll get one. You may have to take the cover off. And Mark, can you tell us or remind us where we are in the text?
We're on number 26.
On which chapter, which page?
It's on page 154, chapter 15.
Chapter 15. And if I recall, we're still in the story of Udalaka, who's of middling intellect. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And so he's been doing ritual, but his mind has yet to find peace. So he still has doubts.
I did put the link for the text on chat.
Great, great. All right. So will you help us out, please, Ganesh?
124.
Is that right? 124? 154.
154.
154.
And 26.
Yes. Nice and loud for deaf Jim.
Satta Samanya Prapti. The attainment of identity with being or existence. Munirevam vinirgatya Kyarthon militam lochanah Omityun charayantasthav pranayama kramena saha. That sage, having thus decided, remained with his eyes half opened, uttering the sacred syllable Om by the method of pranayama, the regulation of vital breath.
So one of the things I like about the text Yoga Vasishtha is it gives equal weight to the methodology of yoga as found in the Yoga Sutras and Jnana Yoga, the pure Vedanta, the methodology found in the Upanishads. Both are valid means of knowledge. Now, a lot of the Vedantins, they just turn up their nose at the yogis. Yoga Vasishtha does not. So here, he goes into meditation and through the methodology of pranayama, begins to get control of the vital air. Now, let's break this down and see why this is of value. So the one primary prana is divided into the Panchavayu. See if I can remember them. You guys have to help me out. First one, the main prana. This is inhalation. Second one is apana, which is sometimes considered exhalation or elimination. I always get these two mixed up. Samana, is that one circulation?
Yeah, that's circulation.
Circulation, meaning the blood circulation. Dhyana, digestion. And udana, thinking. The frequency and the volume of our thought is connected to the vital force. So pranayama is not control of the breath. Pranayama is control of the vital energy by means of controlling the breath. So any of you who may have done what they call Kriya Yoga, these are various forms of ways of controlling the vital energy. Or if you've studied a martial art, so Ganesh has studied Qigong, the Qi, same as prana. Aikido, the Ki, same as the prana. Tai Chi Chuan, same as the prana. Various methodologies, both with the breath and with visualization to control the vital energy. Does several things. Pranayama cleans out the nervous system. So going back 40 years ago plus, people used to go to the City Yoga Foundation down the street where Baba Muktananda had started an ashram. And in City Yoga, they would get zapped by Baba and they would have all these, they shake and roll on the ground and have all these experiences. Oh, I'm having a spiritual experience. Well, sadly, if you're shaking and falling on the ground and rattling and rolling, that's an indication that your nervous system is gross. It's like running a current through a filament that's too thin. So pranayama is one of the ways in which we ground, open up, free up the channels in the nervous system and the subtle system, the nadis, so that spiritual force can flow through us. So through the practice of pranayama, not only improves our health, but The main thing is we begin to get some control over the frequency and the volume and the content of that thought. Any questions about this? Anybody ever practice pranayama? Now, when Swamiji first went up to Rishikesh, he was initiated, he took Diksha with Swami Shivananda, the Shivananda Yoga Vedanta Society, it's called. So he learned asana, pranayama, all those things there. Then Shivananda sent him to Swami Tapovana. Now, I do not know why, but in all the years I worked with Swamiji, he never suggested to me or anybody I heard or taught any Raja Yoga. It's always the purest Vedanta. My personal view on this, if you are intuitively led to pursue this, it is in no way inconsistent with Vedanta. Are there any thoughts or questions on this? I have absolute faith and confidence in the Guru within you. If your intuition says, I need to do this, go for it. Don't give up your Vedanta study. But know that it is a valid pramana. It's a valid means of knowledge. No question about it. So Yoga Vasishtha, it's the only scripture I know of that does this, gives equal weight to the Vedanta and yoga. So here our sage is doing pranayama for the purification of his subtle body. Any thoughts on this? Going on, next verse.
Tehasthitim dridham kritva nipadyendriya panchakam chintaya hridayam bhoje cheto pramara chanchalam balat samrodhayamasa setu jalamiva drutam saumyatan anayat mauni pranapana jabam mukhe. Having made position of the body firm and controlling the 5 sense organs, he forcefully stopped or arrested the mind, flitting like a black bee in the lotus of the heart by reflection, even as a dam arrests the flow of water quickly. The silent sage brought the speed of the outgoing and incoming breaths in the nostrils to the state of gentleness.
Yes, so we have these, okay, someone help me with these terms. There's Rachaka, is that right?
Yeah, Puraka Rechaka.
Puraka and Rachaka, that's the inhale and the exhale. And then there's the, what is the Kumbhaka? Is that the retention of the breath?
Yeah.
And the bandhas where you lock the throat and the anus. So anyway, one of the things you do in pranayama are various exercises for finding that still point between the inhale and the exhale, or between the exhale and the inhale. Now, because one of the subsidiary pranas, Udana, is thinking, you will find that your mind will have a moment of cessation. Many times, first place that people get a glimpse of the nothingness of the self. That space between your thoughts is that suspension between the inhale and the exhale, or between the exhale and the inhale. Now, there's a caveat here. One of the pitfalls of the Raja Yoga tradition is that without mature vairagya, meaning renunciation of our attachment to all enjoyments gained through the senses, and my renunciation of any idea of self from the body up to and including the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning vasana is still there. What you achieve is what we call a jada samadhi. Jada means inert. So your experience is, I, Jim, see blank. And there's no apprehension of our self-nature. So one of the pitfalls of Raja Yoga, for some people, they do asana, they do pranayama, they do their pratyahara, they attempt sense withdrawal, etc., all these practices. And then when they finish their meditative practice, maybe they've spent an hour doing this, they get up and they're totally extroverted into the world. More cash and prizes, more drug, sex, and rock and roll. And then they wonder why they don't progress spiritually. What Yoga Sutra says is abhyasa vairagyacha, practice and intense renunciation. Very important point. Pranayama, the pratyahara, the asana, in and of itself is preparatory. Must be coupled with intense spirit of renunciation. Questions, thoughts on this? So our sage here is practicing pranayama. Let's see what happens to him. And he's able to have these still points going on.
Indriyani indriyatebhyah yathak chakre prayajnatah bahyan sparshan asheshena chahau dure sadhiradihi. He of a firm, a resolute intellect severed the sense organs from the objects of the senses with great effort and cast off far away external contacts completely.
So what Yoga Vasishtha is doing here, and again, this is an abridgment, is he's moving us through the 8 limbs of Raja Yoga as Patanjali puts them out. So let's quickly go through them. First 2 are the yamas and the yamas. These are qualifications of a fit student. I won't go into them, but they're things like cleanliness, purity, truthfulness. Who can list some more of the yamas and niyamas? There's 10 of them. Anyway, you can find them online. Then comes asana, the various yoga postures. When you go to the gym and you take a yoga class, what they're doing is asana. This does several things. One is it helps the body stay healthy. Very difficult to see you're not the body when your body hurts or you're sick. So asana will help keep your body healthy. It also helps again to work on the nervous system. But it does something else. I've forgotten the term the anatomists use when you have the capacity to know what your body's doing in space, like dancers have to have it. Anybody remember the term?
Position sense.
Yeah. Hatha yoga teaches you you're not your body experientially, because you pay attention to where your body is in space. You know, are your legs crooked or straight? Are your arms at the same level? You know, you learn to be able to witness your body in space. And this gives you an experience that your body is an object of cognition. People don't realize that's one of its values. Yama, niyama, asana. Then comes pranayama, which our dude has done. Next comes pratyahara. Pratyahara is sense withdrawal. Being able to withdraw the senses in meditation so we are not agitated by the externals. Shankara will use the word uparati. They are the same. Listen carefully. Yes, when we are in our meditation seat, we need to be able to tune out the outer world. But Shankara says the best uparati, the best pratyahara, is when we're functioning out there in the world and our mind is not agitated, even with the perception of the sense object. Because you can't spend all your time in meditation. So pratyahara at the subtlest level is what Swamiji used to call learning how to tune up the mind. This intense introversion of the mind, so that your energy isn't gushing out and all over the objects. Shankara will use the metaphor of a wicker basket. When you pour water in, it just goes straight on through. So you want to have a mind like a sieve. All the sensory data just goes right on through. No agitation, don't cling to anything. Now, what hooks us? Everybody is more than willing to try to renounce their misery or the insults. Few of us are willing to let go of praise, affirmation. So when someone says, and that's where we get hooked. So when you get praise or compliments, you're polite. You graciously say thank you. Don't let any of it land. Let it go right on through. Any thoughts on this practice? All right, so let's see if the scripture takes us to dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, the last three. Going on.
Babhara hridayakashe mana samyama agatam sudha vata vikalpaughan atibhasam upeyushaha. He bore or experienced in the space of his heart the mind that had obtained concentration or control. Then he shook off or threw off the multitude of doubts which had come into appearance.
So he's combining dharana and dhyana here. Dharana means concentration, of bringing the mind to a single point. So for example, let's say your practice is japa. Can you let nothing exist but the mantra? Om Namah Shivaya. When extraneous thoughts come, you bring them back. Or if you're being with the breath, nothing else exists but the breath. Or if you're doing a body scan, nothing else exists but the body scan. This, by the way, gives you great power in the world. One of the things Krishna says in Gita, this knowledge gives you mastery of this world and the beyond. I've had a student who was diagnosed with ADHD, who has shared with me that the most useful medicine to deal with his ADHD has been meditation. He has learned to not be at the effect, not to be victimized by the compulsively distracted mind. When this matures into dhyana, meditation, here is where the Vedanta and yoga meet. What is the meditation? All meet here. Koham. Who am I? What is my essential nature? In a mind made very pure and quiet, with the attentive faculty introverted. We start with subject object discrimination. I'm not the body. I am not the prana. I'm not the mind and its feelings and reactions. I'm not the intellect with its thoughts and its memories. I'm not even the ego sense. I'm also not even deep sleep or pure ignorance. I'm that witnessing consciousness. So here, our sage is practicing not only dharana, concentration, but dhyana, meditation. Going on.
Agacchato yatha kamam atibhasan punah punah achinnat manasa shura khadkene varane ripun. That brave one cut off with his mind again and again the appearances of perceptions that were coming at will, as he would cut off enemies with sword in battle.
Yes. So what happens in meditation is a condition called kashaya, where the unconscious is made conscious. Out of the unconscious, these hridaya granthi, these knots of the heart, emerge. All our attachments, all our fears, all our lust, all our anger, all our regret. You see them, you notice them, you don't follow them down the rabbit hole. Cut them off. To whom did this experience occur? To me, Koham, who am I? Puna punaha. Again. Over and over. Till your mind has quit vomiting it up, all that material. How long? For some people, a long time. Others, comparatively quickly. This is karma. And this is grace. I tell you how. It's very unique, very individual. There's a lot of mystery. Any thoughts on this part of the process? Going on, next verse.
Vikalpaughe tatha lune drishpa jnanam hridantare tadupyuche tayamasa samyak svantirvivaspata. When the multitude of doubts were destroyed, having perceived ignorance within his heart, he eradicated completely even that with the sun of knowledge within his own self.
Yes. So when the mind has quit throwing up doubts, what about this? What about that? Some of you have heard me talk about a demon. I made up this demon. Very powerful demon. His name is Yabat. So you are not the body, mind, intellect. You are the supreme self. Yeah, but Jim, what about? Yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? The doubter. So here our sage has realized that it's not about resolving all the doubts in the end. It's about giving up the doubter itself. Then he gives up even ignorance. The Anandamaya Kusha, the subtlest of all the sheets. Now, Shankara will say in Vivekachudamani, even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth. This needs to be conscientiously rooted out through steady and continuous identification with the self. The annihilation of the vasanas here and now is considered liberation by the wise. Meaning, even though we may understand it all through our scripture study, through satsang, might even have some glimpses into the infinite, but as long as this karta and bhokta hangs around, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, jiva bhavana, the personal sense of self. No personal sense of self is real. We keep renouncing that identification. How? Through steady and continuous identification with the self. Ever that ground of being. Chidakasha, my favorite term from Yoga Vasishtha, the space of consciousness itself. If I hang on or allow that karta and bhokta to hang out, it says here it's the cause of rebirth. What he means there, I re-identify. Then I become a person. I'm Jim with all my problems. Conscientiously, deliberately rooted out through steady and continuous identification with the self. Our great sage Ramana Maharshi summed it up so beautifully. Hang with the practice, go hum. Who am I? When a sense perception arises, to whom did this occur to me? Who am I? Keep turning the attentive faculty back on the self first. The mind gets triggered. Whoa! To whom did this occur? To me. Who am I? Oh, wait a minute. I'm not the mind. I'm not a person. I'm the witnessing consciousness. This is jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge. This is what destroys my ignorance. When all the vasanas, whose power is avarana shakti, whose power is avidya, veiling power, have been annihilated, then the nature of myself is as clear as a piece of fruit in your hand. So here Udalaka has done this practice, his dhyana, his meditation. When ignorance itself has finally been renounced, let's see what happens. Next verse.
Gate tamasi cha jnane teja teja punjam tadarshasah tejasya tato lune nidram prapkya lulavatam. When the darkness of ignorance was gone, he saw a mass of luster. When even this luster was cut off, having obtained sleep, he again annihilated that sleep.
So in meditation, we can be concerned with and attached to phenomena. This is a true story. So when I went into the ashram in the Hague, I had done 7 years of a meditative practice in Western metaphysics. I was not a novice in spiritual life. And, so meditating a lot, reading my Shankara. I was in deep meditation. I had this wild experience. There was all this gold white light, and I was just bathed in ecstasy. So I took the bus out to the avenues to see Ram. He was one of Swamiji's students who was running the ashram. I said, Ram, I think I've realized this stuff. He said, oh, really? I said, what happened? He says, oh, I was in meditation. I saw this gold white light everywhere, and I was just bathed in ecstasy. Really? And he said, well, what was happening before that? Well, I was just sitting in meditation. He said, and who's aware of the mind in meditation? And when you saw the gold white light and experienced the ecstasy, who's aware of that? Again, to get what he was driving at. I was. And he said, and who's aware of this conversation we're having right now? I am. He said, that's yourself. This eternal, constant factor. Self-realization is not an experience. It's a realization of what always is. It's not some wackadoodle mind state. Now, wackadoodle mind states are fun. God knows. I love Shakti. I love whacked out mind states. It's a worldly pleasure. It's not knowledge of yourself. If it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in time and space, if it has qualities and characteristics, if it's confined to the waking, dream, or deep sleep state, most importantly, if it is a knowable phenomenon, that's not it. Drop it. What is the eternal factor? What is that which is always there? Now, I frequently say the self is difficult to realize, not because you need some wackadoodle state or it's far away, because of its profound ordinariness. It is so always there that we miss it. So in meditation, we remove from our perception, from our attention, everything removable. And what's the residual? What's left over? You don't attain it. You don't achieve it. You don't become it. You don't merge into it. You see what you've always been and what's always there. It's yourself. Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. Now, in a quiet mind, investigate that. So, Udalaka's having phenomena. Let's see what happens. Going on.
Nidrayam cha nirastayam shunya samvid samudhyayau shunya samvidi nashtayam mudham tasya bhavat manah. When sleep was cast away, there arose void consciousness. When the void consciousness was lost, his mind became confounded.
So, how many of you have had the experience you're in meditation and then you fall asleep? And then he has void consciousness, meaning I, as an individual, that Jiva Bhavana is still there, see nothing. That's not it either. So he's confused. Now let's see what happens. Going on.
Manaso mohamapyeshaha sammarjam Manaso mohamapyeshaha samamarjam mahashayah tatah tejastamo nidra ehadapi ehadipa vivarjitam tatastejastamo nidra mohadipa vivarjitam kamapyavastham asadya vishashrama manashanam. This I-Sold one completely wiped off even this delusion. Then, having reached a certain state, deprived of the luster, darkness, sleep, delusion, and the like, the mind took rest for a moment.
So after the mind has quit trying to distract itself with various forms of phenomena, it settles down. It's funny, in the Christian scriptures, there's some sayings of Jesus that have nothing prepared and nothing that follows. They're just kind of stuck in there. One of them is, in a moment when you take no thought. When the mind unknows. Let's see what he experiences. Now, in our Ashtanga yoga, our 8 limbs of yoga, if your dhyana has been effective and successful, it ripens the samadhi. Let's see what happens to me now. Going on.
Vishramyashu papat swasam vidam vishvarupinam chirana sandhanavasha svadanascha sasamvidah mana chinmayatam aga hema nupura nupuratamiva. Having reposed, the mind alighted quickly or directly on its own consciousness, which is of the nature of the universe or the all. By the power of long investigation or reflection, the tasting of its own consciousness, the mind attained to the state of pure intelligence or consciousness, just as gold attains to the state of an anklet.
Yes. So, my favorite image for this is if there's a storm out at sea, there are waves. And then when the storm passes, the sea is smooth and glassy. What happened to the waves? Were they separate from the sea? What once was crashing waves just goes. So let us understand what is the mind. The mind is prakasha, light, pure awareness, plus vimarsha, deliberation, vikalpa, thinking, vritti, thought. Ocean, waves. Listen carefully. You do not have awareness like you have a thought or you have a feeling. You are awareness. You are aware of the thoughts, feelings, sense perception. When the mind ceases what we call the Ch.15, its projecting power, its extroversion, and like the wave, settles down. Mind is the awareness of the flow of thought. Mind minus the flow of thought is pure awareness. The mind resting in its essential nature, its ground, and rediscovers its essential nature. Aham Brahmasmi. I am that partless Brahman. The mind free from Vikshepa Shakti. The mind not attached to its vimarsha, its deliberation, its chintya, word, is the mind of peace. The mind that's become no mind. Shunya chitta. Empty. That's when the mind realizes the self is Ananda, the fountainhead, the source of all happiness. Because the self is bliss absolute, the mind abiding in the self, retiring into the self, is blissful. There are various terms to express this. Atmaramana. Ramramati means to revel. The dude, Ramana Maharshi, his name means he who revels. The mind of the person of wisdom can retire into the self and revel in the self. One of my favorite expressions is Brahmananda Rasa, the juice, essence. You don't get a mango really ripe mango, you just cut off the squeeze. So, Udalaka, it's tasting bliss. It's a term that Sufis use, so and so has the taste. Even in Hebrew scripture, one of the Psalms says, taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Going on, next verse.
Chittatvam athasam tyajya chittam chittavatam gatam chetyam santyajya chitshuddha chitta samanya samayayo tyakvicha tyakvichadi bhedoktihi va samanyam ivaikadhi. Then, having given up the nature of the mind as a thinking instrument, the mind went to the state of the consciousness principle. Having abandoned the objects to be cognized, the purified intellect attained identity with pure consciousness. Just as the ocean, which has abandoned modification such as waves, has identity with water, it was the one intellect that attained identity with pure consciousness.
So Swamiji used to say, stop the mind. Stop the mind and you stop. So here he's describing Udalaka entering into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Nir is without, Vikalpa movement of perturbation, Sama equality, the mind, absolute quiescence or equanimity of mind, without any perception of any phenomena. The scriptures say in that state there is no longer any distinction between knower, knowing, and known. They are merged. Now, gotta be careful. People get an idea of what they think nirvikalpa samadhi is going to be like. And they make nirvikalpa samadhi itself another object of desire. That becomes self-defeating. The more you crave it and seek it and search for it, it's like trying to step on the head of your shadow. So, those of us who've been studying Tripura Rahasya, basically, any time the mind is free from thought, you leave your eyes wide open. That's samadhi. That's nirvikalpa. People have it all the time. If in class, as we turn your attentive faculty back on the self, you just get a flash. Oh, yeah, there's nobody there. You are in a momentary nirvikalpa, because you've seen it. The mind came right back and you reflected on it. So don't worry about this. A far better way to approach it is, do I know who I am? Don't be focused on a mind state, even the mind state of nirvikalpa. Keep renouncing, keep renouncing, keep renouncing. All the vasanas have been renounced, all the attachments and identifications are gone. Knowledge of yourself will be evident, which is the fruit of nirvikalpa. Very important point. Now, in the Yoga Sutras, we talk about, actually, there are various kinds of samadhis they talk about. But it is a mind state of no mind. I illustrate it this way. Here's the self shining upon the mind. Waking state, dream state, deep sleep state, samadhi. Return from samadhi. Oh, there's nobody there. There's nobody there. That's what happens. The point, focus on, do you know who you are? Always, when we discuss nirvikalpa, we have a second definition. The scriptures say it is the state where knower, knowing, and known, the triple factor, have ceased to be or have merged. You know the world through the triple factor, the triple T. I, through seeing, know the coffee table. I, through hearing, know the traffic, etc. I, and when I use the term I, you refer to yourself. I, through manas, mind, no feelings, judgments. I, through buddhi, no thoughts. How do you know you are you? You do not see, hear, taste, touch, smell, emote, or think yourself. You know you are. Yourself is self-evident. You will never see yourself as an object, yet you know you are. I am the knower. I am the means of knowledge. I am that which is known, myself. Knower, knowing, and known are merged in Swayambhu, the self-evidence of me. You are not going to experience nirvikalpa. You are nirvikalpa. It's another name for the self. Don't believe me. Who here knows the great Shankara hymn, Nirvana Shatakam? Anybody? One of the verses, Aham nirvikalpo. Doesn't say I've experienced nirvikalpa. It says I am. Don't get caught up in making your romantic idea of nirvikalpa samadhi another object of desire. You let it sneak up on you from behind, by God's grace. Keep renouncing. Keep disidentifying. Rather, put your attention on who am I? What is my essential nature? All right, one more verse.
Chidakasham tatashuddham so bhavat bodhamagataha tatra prapat athanandam trishya darshana varjitam satta samanya rupatma prabhuvananda sagarah. Then he who had attained knowledge became or existed as the pure plenum of consciousness. There he then obtained bliss, which was destitute of the seen and the seeing, realizing his self, whose nature was identical with pure existence. He became an ocean of bliss.
Yes. So, Chidakasha, one of my favorite terms used right here. The space of pure consciousness. Now, what this verse indicates is a secret. It's very important. Both bondage and liberation occur to the mind, technically in the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the subtle intellect. The self is ever free. Self-realization happens to my mind. Or you can say the self is already and always realized. When were you ever known you? So it is the mind that undergoes transformation. It's the mind that has the oh, I'm not a person, I am Brahman. Oh, my self-nature is bliss absolute. The world is void, shunya. What I've been looking for, I've been looking with. So there's the perfect knowledge, the self-evidence of I, and the great cosmic joke, you've always had it. Then there's that pratyabhignana, that recognition, that insight, happens in the subtle intellect. here Udalaka gets it. I am that partless Brahman. Note, at the moment of realization, the intellect doesn't say, oh, I'm a realized person now. Oh, all these people are going to come and touch my feet. Oh, aren't I special and different than other people? No. What one realizes is no thought of self is real. I'm Chidakasha. I'm the space of pure awareness. By the way, so is everybody else. Okay, we need to stop here. Very wonderful process of what the Raja Yogis go through, the 8 stages of Raja Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga and Raja Yoga are the same thing, but Ashtanga just means 8 limbs. This is the yoga that's put forward by the great sage Patanjali. It is not inconsistent. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
How'd you do with this, Rory?
It's really good. I did have one question if you have time.
I have always got time.
So, for myself, I find the sense of doership and experiencing seems to hit me most while I'm at work, while I'm doing lots of task-oriented things and working with other people and problem solving. Do you think it's advisable to, during those moments or that kind of scenario, to practice that, the inward turning and the vichara that,
Yes.
or
It's an illusion to think that you can't function well when the mind's at meditation. What you'll find actually is your mind is far more effective when you become a no drama guy at work. You see. And when you find yourself getting identified, stay with the question, who am I? To whom did this experience occur? Even if you get identified, oh, the mind got identified. To whom did this occur? Oh, to me. Who am I? Okay, I am that Chidakasha, that witnessing consciousness, that space of consciousness. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Good to see you. Thank you. Was that useful, Rory?
yeah, that was very helpful. Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Your ego is going to say, oh, I've got to be identified, engaged in order to get work done. Not true.
Okay. Perfect.
And no problem. So you come home and you think, oh my God, I was identified all day long at work. No blame. Don't look back. Who was it who thinks he got identified? That's an illusory being. Now drop that.
is it okay? Because sometimes when I do the vichara, sort of skip the who am I portion and go straight to the identification as awareness. Is that
Yeah,
not good to do
That's
that,
great.
or
that's
is
great.
that okay?
Fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's great.
Perfect. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that.
I understood.
Rory, did you get the text link?
I did. I downloaded
Okay.
it. So
Okay, great.
yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Thank
Just
you
wanted
so
to be sure.
much.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Mark.
night.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for chanting tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Good